Hello everyone, I'm Ruby Larkspur. Welcome to the garden, and I am back with a new video. This video is a tad bit different from the last one. While I'm still technically redesigning canon characters, this time it's for an AU instead of desexualizing characters. These redesigns are the Hashira from one of my fanfic one-shot series, Scattered Embers and Broken Hearts. The link to that will be in the description below if you want to check it out. Also, a quick note, this is not all the Hashira. I just struggle less with drawing female figures, and I didn't want this video to take too long while I struggle with the boys. There will be a video for the male Hashira of this alternate universe. It's just going to take a little longer. Anatomy is a struggle. But for now, we're going to start with the Hashira that I do currently have designs for. Also, a quick heads up, this video does feature manga spoilers, and a few of them. If you aren't caught up on the manga and are worried about spoilers, then I suggest you leave now because some of them are really big, like major part of the story big. We're all good? Let's get started. So, Scattered Embers and Broken Hearts is one of my many Demon Slayer AUs I have written at least a couple chapters worth of the story for. It's an age/fate swap AU, meaning some characters have switched ages with others, and others were swapped with a character close to them. The main duo is Kyojo Rengoku and Mitsuri Kanroji, and you can guess where our dear Kamado siblings are. The rest of the canon Hashira are either much younger and therefore part of the story's Kamaboko squad or elsewhere in the story, or they're very dead. May the canon Hashira I killed off rest in peace. On the topic of this switch, this first design is Nezuko. I'll go into more detail about the Kamado family backstory when I cover Tanjiro, but let it be known that they need therapy as usual. Nezuko is the Wind Hashira in this story. As the descendant of a line of sun breathers, and not the oldest, she had a proficiency in learning what I call the core breathing styles. Wind, water, thunder, stone, flame, and moon, the last of which is yet to be revealed in the anime, but we'll get it later down the line. Now, flame doesn't exist in the core here, as the Sengoku-era Rengoku ancestor left the core shortly after Yorichi's banishment and took his breathing style with him. And Moon isn't in the roster for reasons the manga readers know all too well. Well, now, most of the switches aren't one-to-one, but some have very close equivalents. For Nezuko, as I'm sure you've guessed, she's most closely switched with Mitsuri, a big sister figure to the main duo and an absolute queen. I love designing this version of Nezuko, and writing her has been even more fun. The scars I put on her face came from a demon attack when she was younger, having to do with why she and Tanjiro need therapy as desperately as they do. You'll also notice I gave her a sword similar to Mitsuri. Yes, I made Nezuko a dual wielder, but I actually made the ribbon sword a new addition she gets in the Swordsmith's Village arc. She's been training to wield it and officially gets the sword in that arc. I honestly just thought it'd be interesting if the wind-breathing forms had the range provided by that kind of sword, and the moves would look cool. We haven't seen wind-breathing animated yet, but I have some ideas based on the wiki descriptions. Next is her Haori. I haven't colored it yet, but you'll see in a moment. She still has her Asanoa pattern kimono, but it's remained a kimono, rather than having her modify into a Haori as I do in some of my other stories. I tried to make her Haori here kind of like a pink leaf by adding the pattern similar to the veins you see in a leaf, because wind is sometimes symbolized by leaves. I'm a creative genius. Extra note, I saw an animation, Hana Eosora's Demon Slayer Another World animation, which I would highly recommend, that had Nezuko wearing her hair in a braid. And I adore her wearing her hair like this. I just love seeing Nezuko with her hair tied back, but especially in a braid for some reason. Probably because I wear my own hair in a braid every day, but I digress. I also gave her a little bit of biceps because she deserves to be a little buff. What do you guys think? Should she be a little more buff? Next, personality. Nezuko is an interesting case as I basically had to build a personality for her from the ground up since we get so little in canon, unfortunately. I tend to make her a feral gremlin in my stories, which she honestly kind of deserves to be, and that is no different here. She's a little more reserved since she's 20 years old and a Hashira, and thus matured and needs to set at least some form of an example. But she'll still light you on fire and eliminate your kneecaps of privacy if she feels that is absolutely necessary. And as a member of the Sun Breathers, I also gave her the iconic black blade. They aren't seen as oddly or unlucky as they are in canon, due to there actually being active Sun Breathers in the core, though it's pretty much exclusive to the Kamado family. And with that, here we have Nezuko completed. Let's move on to the next of the Hashira. Next we have Kanao. She is the flower Hashira in this AU, and her closest equivalent is Shinobu. Now, I did have to make a bit of an adjustment to Kanao's backstory as the Kocho sisters are a little too young to meet her and save her in this AU. And I felt having their parents save her made things a little convoluted. So instead, she's rescued by an OC I made specifically for this AU who becomes both her adoptive mom and her predecessor. Her name for now is just Lady Tsuyuri, but I'll do a video on my various OCs later and reveal her given name there. So Kanao has a caring and adoptive mom. Yay! Kanao did still use the coin she does in canon, but began using it a little less in her teen years thanks to Lady Tsuyuri, as well as Aoi, Tanjiro, and Nezuko. She grew up close to the three, with Aoi being like a sister to her after the older of the two was brought in after losing her family to demons, and Lady Tsuyuri, being close friends with the Kamado parents, brought Kanao close to Tanjiro and Nezuko. So, having that positive influence, especially the notoriously stubborn Kamado siblings, did help push her to work on using the coin less. Eventually, admission forced her to make a snap decision, and she's not used the coin since. Now, I'm sure you're all wondering by now, well, why does Kanao have a butterfly clip if she wasn't saved by Shinobu and Kanai? Well, dear viewer, the butterfly clip was a gift from the sisters to say thanks for saving their lives. Yep, Kanao saved the sisters in this AU, and she and Aoi took them in immediately after that mission. And it's actually the color of a clip she had initially before Kanai died in canon. Also, I gave her a hairpin in the drawing in the lower left corner. I haven't drawn it yet, but you will see it momentarily. And that does have story importance. I'm sure the colors may hold some clues when we get to there. Now, an addition from the manga that will be clear when I color her, not to give too much away, but I gave Kanao pink tips like she has on the volume 18 manga cover. I believe she got them in the Infinity Castle arc, and I tied her hair into a bun, mostly to give her a more adult and professional look. Not that there's anything inherently unprofessional about tie ponytails, but I thought it would be a good way to indicate Kanao's slightly increased age and maturity. She is 22 after all. Also, as much as I didn't change this in the others, her looks, I love Kanao's boots. Very practical and a hint to the modern influence appearing in Taisho era Japan, and since most of the core is still wearing the traditional Zori sandals and kyahan, the leg wraps. In terms of personality, Kanao is still often quiet and reserved, the reasons which will be explained later in the video. She's much more open around the Kamaboko squad, most notably Inosuke, Nezuko, and Tandra, as well as Lady Tsuyuri. Having a living and healthy maternal figure in her life has been very beneficial to Kanao. The reason for Aoi not being among them will be explained in her section of the video, but I don't doubt you can make your guesses. She tries her best to be a good sister, Kanao, to all the girls she, Aoi, and Lady Tsuyuri have brought in over the years, especially knowing what she and her own siblings went through, and wanting no child to suffer that kind of pain if she can help it. By the way, crazy fact about Kanao, she's the 8th of 11 kids. She's also a medical assistant at the Tsuyuri estate, which is this story's butterfly mansion. It's not named because the Kocho sisters don't own the place. But here's Kanao finished. Next, Hashira. Next, we move to Hinatsuru and her fellow Uzui wives. I will admit, when I get to the other wives, it's probably going to feature a lot of improv. Also, I apologize in advance for Hinatsuru's fishnets because, let's just say they need work, but I don't have enough practice with fishnets on the bent legs. But I also decided to do a fancy pose, because I'm nothing if not determined. So, the Uzui ladies are in place of their husband. Docs tried to suggest plural grammar to me. The cowards. They each use a separate fighting style, but actually consider themselves to share their title of Hashira as a trio. They are all equally awesome apart and even better together. The way they ended up as they are goes like this. After the quartet of Tengen and his wives ran away from their clan, they were attacked by a demon. Tengen, being the protective husband he is, stepped in to protect his girls. The wounds he sustained were pretty serious, preventing him from joining the fight as a slayer. However, Hinatsuru, Makio, and Suma, being relatively uninjured and healthy enough to use breathing styles, stepped in to join the corps. It took some time to soothe Tengen's worries about their safety, but he eventually settled down and eased up on fussing about them being in the field without him to protect them. Did I make Tengen a house husband? Yes, I did. Man still does the occasional covert op, but he's usually the house husband. And he's the most supportive house husband. For the uniform, I used the sleeveless top Tengen has, and then used the slits the wives have on their counter outfits on the skirt. I thought it would add fun visual appeal without having the Mitsuri problem, aka the titties out uniform. We are here for covered chests in this house. I tried my best to keep the angles so there wouldn't be any obvious butt shots, though there may be a cheek peek. Unfortunately, I couldn't think of poses I liked here that completely avoided that. Obviously, if I were to draw this as an actual comic, there would be as few compromising angles as possible. As far as her breath style, Hinatsuru is the sound Hashira, though her version of it is a little different from what Tengen came up with in canon, hence her having a standard katana instead of Tengen's cleavers. Since Hinatsuru is shown to be the most mature wife, at least implicitly, and gives off a very strong big sister vibe, I came up with the idea of her making sound breathing, possibly with Tengen's help, and Makio and Suma branch off from that when they struggle with sound. So it goes sun, thunder, sound, and then Makio and Suma styles. We'll cover them there. Even having a katana, though, all three wives still carry at least one kunai. Of course, they're laced with Wisteria poison. They're kunoichi. They were likely not raised to fight fair. Here, they use what advantages they can, get the missions completed at all costs, and honor Tengen's request to not die. It's not always easy, but in the early stages of breaking the thought process of their training and upbringing especially, but they manage, and they manage to live to retirement. While they usually stick to their trio, they will sometimes split off to chat with other Hashira and have their presences as to who they hang out with. Hinatsu tends to stay closer to the Kamado siblings when she's not around her fellow wives, as well as Kanao and the one other who is in this video. She loves Zuma and Makio, but it's nice to be around fellow calmer individuals. They all need the occasional break from the panicking of Zenitsu and Suma, and the yelling from Makio, Inosuke, and sometimes Genya, and then there's the antisocial duo. But that's for when I cover the boys. A common conversation topic between Tanjiro and Hinatsuru is actually discussing how they both handle the chaos that they're constantly surrounded by and being considered somewhat of leaders in their respective groups. They're very good friends, the two of them. And with Hinatsuru coming to a close in the finishing of her process, let's hop over to the next of the wives. Next in the lineup is Makio. Something you'll notice on my initial pose scribble is the line between the two lines meant to indicate her weapons. Makio got the chain weapons, a kunai and a katana connected by a large chain. Makio is the firework Hashira, the breath style and its name being inspired by both her explosive personality and colorful spirit. And I thought it would be cool to have a firework Hashira. How the attacks work, I haven't fully sorted out yet. I am open to ideas, but I have the concepts, like featuring explosives, because fireworks and gunpowder. Makes sense. And my god, did the chains take me a hot minute to do. I'm sure there's a brush palette full of them out there, but I'm new to Procreate and don't know where a brush download area would be, or if there's even pre-downloadable content for Procreate. I will sort that out later. I figured out the chains here. That is what matters. And only 2 Hashira have them. Thank you, past me. God damn, did I get this one long legs. Artist Anatomy Brain has Fashion Anatomy Brain in a chokehold and may be actively trying to strangle her, because I clearly need to work on getting the length good from the get-go. Well, it's just hardwired into my brain. If you take a look at a fashion croquis, you will know what I'm talking about when it comes to doing freakishly long legs on a human figure. That's just how we're trained to draw them. Don't worry, I'm 99% sure I ended up fixing it a little later. It's just something that takes practice that I gotta train out of my brain, even though I do still do fashion sketches. I don't know. Makio is just as fiery as Canon and uses the unpredictability of both her weapons and her own nature as a kunoichi to her advantage. The explosives also help, because she uses them for smoke screens and damage, but mostly the former. It's easier to sneak away from your opponent when they can't see you, of course. Once again, we have the slit skirt. I like the design. It's fun and a way to add visual appeal without leaving the bits or vital organs exposed. I know skirts kind of inherently cause issues with the former, but I'm trying to have a decent amount of variety beyond hair. Women deserve variety, especially in anime. Also, I have no clue how successful I was in this endeavor. I am fully open to constructive criticism on it, but I tried to have at least small differences in everyone's figures. It'll take practice for sure, but I hope there's at least small things. Differences in the sizes of different body parts was a big one, especially for the Uzui girls. They all had the exact same figure in canon, so a little variety won't hurt. Especially since their canon designs imply Tengen has a type, and not in terms of personality. If you look to the lower left, you'll probably notice the empty right sleeve. Yeah, Makio loses that arm in the entertainment district fight. I want the polycule to retire happily, and they can't retire while all of them are healthy and have all 16 collective limbs between the 4 of them. That's just not how it works here. I know, the boss, I don't make the rules. I am not Gotouge, I'm so sorry. I mentioned that this trio has preferences for who they hang out with aside from each other. Makio hangs out with Genya and Inosuke most of the time. Feral squad, the 3 of them. Plus Nezuko. Makio has learned firearm use. Genya does not trust Inosuke or Nezuko with a firearm. Nezuko does know how to use a firearm, but again, not trusted with one. And then Inosuke and Genya have learned stealth from Makio, and Inosuke's taught them major stuff, which has made them more powerful and dangerous than before. And here's Makio completed. Let us move on to the next Hashira. And last but not least of the Uzui ladies, we have Suma, the canonically bisexual queen. Girl interrupted her sister's marriage interview, threw herself at Tengen like, please marry me, A girl pulled a Katniss volunteer's tribute, and then was the one to volunteer Hinatsuru's Suma. Ma'am, I appreciate your taste. She's still pretty panicky, like in canon, but she's working on getting better about it. She's doing her best. A for effort, Suma. Good for you. Suma's breath style is music breathing. An idea I have is potentially using sound and her movement to her advantage, disorienting enemies and potentially even dulling their cognitive function or putting them into hypnosis. Right now it's purely in the concept stage. I have enough for chapters, not a full story. If you guys have ideas and input, I'd actually love to hear them. Just leave comments down below. As for who she prefers to hang out with aside from Makio and Hinatsuru, it's usually Zenitsu. The two of them are surprisingly good at hyping each other up, despite their respective self-esteem issues and panicking. Suma tells Zenitsu he's a great fighter for his adaptability when he can only master one thunder-breathing form, and because he got the honor of being trained directly by a former Hashira. Zenitsu insists she's great because she's a skilled kunoichi that could have also just walked out and stayed with her husband while Hinatsuru and Makio stood and fought. The first time he said that last part, he worded it poorly, and Suma bit him hard enough to draw blood. Does it sound more like Makio? Well, Suma canonically bit Tengen when he said he was going to hell, so this is actually really in line with her and her character, which is surprising. Like, seriously, Tengen said he'd go to hell, Hinatsuru cried, Makio yelled at him, and Suma bit him. What the hell, ma'am? You have a secret feral side, and I love that. Something else with the Uzui trio that I tried to give them is varying skin tones. I tried to do that across the board, of course, and I would love to have some constructive feedback on how I did so I can improve for next time. And yeah. And we're going into improv territory because I wasn't sure what else to say. Yeah. I just love these ladies. They're awesome. They're cool. Well, and yeah. I still find it crazy that Suma is canonically bisexual. Not in a bad way. I think it's really cool that in a show taking place in Taisho era Japan, and that is an anime, we have a canonically bisexual character. She's married to all three of them, and I love that for her. And here is Suma. Let's move on from the Uzui wives to the new Hashira. Moving on from the 75% of a polycule, we now go to the physically strongest of the Hashira women, Sayo, and the longest video section here. For those who don't know, Sayo is a major part of Gyome's backstory in canon. So this section is basically one big manga spoiler. Luckily, not for much longer, with the Hashira training arc coming out in spring. So Gyome was raising a group of children, one of which was Sayo, and the other of which was Kaigaku, who, among several others. Kaigaku is that guy from Zenitsu Season 1 flashback that chucks a peach at him. The dickwad. Shenanigans occurred and Sayo ended up accidentally accusing Gyome of murder. Don't go too hard on her. She was 4 at the time and just watched all but one of the kids she was being raised with get brutally murdered. Can't blame her for being stressed and not specifying it was some guy and not a caretaker. And she felt so bad about it too. That's actually got a theory that she became a Kakashi later down the line. She's Nezuko's days in canon, and the Corps recruits anyone in double digits. I think 12 was the youngest someone actually went to final selection. So it adds up that she could be a Kakashi at 14. So many kids. So that's canon Sayo with a little bit of headcanon in the mix. What about here? Well, hers is probably the most one-to-one switch, being switched with Gyome. So she was the one raising the group of kids, with Gyome being among the youngest. Like canon, Kaigaku gets kicked out for stealing and wanders off into the night, but Sayo notices he's missing. Gyome didn't in canon due to his blindness, so she was panicking for a bit. But she didn't suspect anything, however, when Kaigaku came back to the temple they all lived in. She only gave him a light scolding for being out after dark. After Kaigaku extinguished the weird Syria incense, however, it was bad. Sayo was at the tail end of her teen years, had no fighting experience, and didn't have much of a, if any, physical advantage over this demon that attacked. She lasted until daybreak purely on adrenaline, and fending off the demon did cost her left eye. It didn't spare most of the kids, though. The only survivors were Gyome and Kaigaku, the latter of which had run away. The authorities arrived, and all evidence pointed to Sayo being responsible for the deaths, since the demon had burned in the daylight. Gyome mentioned a he in his panicked rambling about what happened, but he was blind. Maybe he just heard someone outside while the massacre was happening and mistook it for the murderer. So no matter how much he tried to tell him otherwise, the authorities agreed Sayo was responsible and had to be executed for what she did. Luckily, before she actually was, two representatives of the Demon Slayer Corps came to her aid, even if the authorities didn't know at the time. A 12-year-old Kirya Ubuyashiki, the leader of the Demon Slayers, and his escort in the form of Tanjiro Kamado, Tanjiro Nezuko's father, who was the son Hashira at the time. Kiria took Sayo in and helped her get back on her feet and recover before she joined the Corps. Sayo ended up training relentlessly, but couldn't quite master any breathing style. The closest match was stone, but it required too much physical strength, no matter how hard she pushed herself. So she branched off, creating an offshoot of crystal called crystal breathing that suited her perfectly. She's the oldest of the Hashira and the longest serving by the time of the main series. She's a calm person, but also a relentless fighter. The Corps has become something of a family to her, and she refuses to lose another one. And who knows? Maybe she'll get the chance to reunite with Guillaume. With Sayo, I actually pulled in some Japanese color theory. As a little fun fact, she has a red sash, which represents, in Japan, and it represents strength, passion, self-sacrifice, and blood. And when she's wearing green, because, one, it's complementary color theory people, and two, it represents youth, eternity, vitality, and energy. I mostly want to focus on the strength and passion in red, as well as a little bit of the blood part, and youth, eternity, and vitality with green. The green is actually kind of ironic since she's the oldest active Hashira and wasn't able to keep her original life for as long as she would have liked. The red is less ironic since she's the physically strongest of the women and on the higher end of the strength levels overall, and has a passion to make sure no others suffer the way she and her found family suffered. Plus, also, the blood that she has witnessed and had to shed, both as a demon slayer and before joining the Corps. She's been through a lot. I also added the green tips to her hair for a little extra visual appeal. Well, let me know what you guys think of it. And I had my mishap on shading. But here she is, looking dumb, looking awesome. Let's move on to the last and final of the Hashira. The last of the female Hashira is Aoi. Don't get your hopes up, though. She doesn't have a pulse. I'm so sorry, but I still figured I would include her because she still moved around. Aoi's story goes pretty similarly to canon until she's become a slayer. Where she got too scared and quit in canon, Aoi's stuck in the Corps here. She was still terrified of demons, but was determined to support her little sister, Kano. So, with nothing but sheer determination, she got to work and started brainstorming on how to work past her fear. At first, she tried the head-on solution. Keep fighting and hope she would build the courage. It didn't work out, so she ended up taking another route. Fighting from a distance. Guns like what Genya used were too loud, and she feared being thrown back into her original predicament if she missed a shot. So she created insect breathing using its silent alternative to a gun, archery. Regular bow, crossbow, she cycled through her options until she found something she liked. Her arrows, which she refers to as stingers, are specially designed for insect breathing. The tips are nitrine, and the shaft is hollow to fill with poison. It's basically a giant needle if you think about it. And the tips are entirely removable. Well, they basically screw on and off, in case the shafts or fletchings get damaged and need replacing. Aoi also makes a point to retrieve her ammo after a fight, so as not to waste resources. If she can't retrieve them at all, like they were destroyed, then she'll ask for more when she starts running low. But she tries her best to keep her ammo up in order to make sure that she's not just throwing away nitrine materials. Because I imagine those aren't easy to get. So for Aoi's Haori, which you will see when I'm coloring, I added little butterflies in the fully rendered reference, the one that gets shading. These are embroidered with the colors of the Hashira who are active during her time. There would be more scattered across it, but this is what I show for a little visual interest and flair. The darker red butterfly represents Tanjiro, the pink butterfly represents Nezuko, there's going to be a yellow butterfly to represent Zenitsu, a pinkish purple butterfly to represent Kanao, a green butterfly for Inosuke. Did I already mention Inosuke? Like a brighter green butterfly for Inosuke, her muted green for Sayo, and a darker blue butterfly for Sabito, a softer, brighter blue butterfly for Suma, and a bluish purple butterfly for Hinatsuru. The other two aren't active yet, which includes Genya. He hasn't become a Hashira yet. He is in the Corps. Now for the explanation why Aoi is unfortunately 6 feet under. Doma. Doma's why. Because of course he is. Arrows aren't really helpful when a kinetic can just whip up shields. We all saw what Elsa did against those guys with the crossbows. Freaking Doma. Yeah. I'm actually kind of interested. What do you guys think of there being an archer among the demon slayers? Because I thought it would be a pretty cool idea to kind of show the versatility that can be brought into the demon slayers. But at the same time, who knows how that would actually go? Maybe it's something for non-breathing style demon slayers like Genya. Well, anyway, here is Ali completed, and that is the last of the Hashira. At least in the female section, it's Scattered Embers of Broken Hearts. This video is damn near half an hour. I hope you enjoyed. Also, I know some of these have more story-esque narration style, and I'd love to hear if you guys like that or the more info presentation type voiceover. And who's your favorite of the ladies? Until next time, everyone.